impacts, fatal heart impacts, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact, don't ask, grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now, get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Show here. And now. It's been a minute since I uploaded a part to this series. And I've actually been looking back on it a bit today. Now, whenever we last left off with this series, Deku, after being kidnapped by the yautja, he was released on an alien planet, where for 1 week he has been surviving. Now, Deku, in this 1 week period of time, he's actually been learning a few things. Deku's been using his quirk Reverse. Now, Reverse is a quirk that basically allows Deku to reverse engineer or at least pull apart how things work, and piece them back together in a way his mind can understand very simply. Now, using Deku's quirk, he's been able to survive. Him deciphering yautja, and, well, even getting access to some technology. Now, Deku, he's also learned through reading this manual he was given a few other things about some of the native species on the planet. And he's even found a warning page about the alien. Now, Deku found it very hard to understand. This thing that will latch onto a person's face and spawn something? It doesn't make sense. It sounds very hard to believe. However, he wouldn't find it hard to believe if he didn't find evidence of it. Now, with that being said, it's been announced that the predators of the yautja are going to be hunting down the humans. And the youngest daughter of the elder yautja, she will be hunting down Deku. She finds him to be a very curious human. Along with that, he's learning faster than many others. And he's actually one of the better ones well off. So he's a rare hunt. A human who can survive. Now, if I remember correctly, there were about 3,000 humans on the planet. So, let's just cut that number down to 1,300. And Deku is among the remaining humans. Now, we do actually have Deku, who he's got his gear. His gun, his armor, his bow, his medkit, the grenades he took from the door, and, well, 3 knives. Now, Deku, using a sturdy piece of wood, he's been able to actually fashion these knives into a makeshift weapon. Or let's just say, makeshift spears that he can use. Now, Deku, he's currently running through the forest, as he's trying to think as he's holding the gun in his hand. He's only got about 10 of these power cells. He doesn't understand how they exactly work, but maybe with time he can try to decipher them, or even find a way to recharge them. It doesn't make too much sense, but this is all he's really got for right now. Now then, Deku, he actually does hear something, as he does go to turn and actually bring up his gun, as somebody does come walking out of the woods with their hands up. Hey, okay, I mean no harm. You're human. Yeah. Who are you? I'm Deku, looking over his shoulder, as just look back towards this person. Deku actually going to back away, back down the path he was at, talking about how he's a survivor. Hey, so am I. I'm alone, okay? I don't trust you. Why? Because I just don't. Look at you. Deku, he does see this person. They don't have any visible weapons on them. And there's him. He's carrying spears, a bow, and a gun, and he's got armor on. He's almost armed to the teeth compared to her. And then there's her with no weapons. Now, Deku, he does quickly decipher something. She has a quirk. Now, the little girl, she has to go to bring up her hands. And she has to lash them out as they do elongate towards Deku. Deku, he actually does do one thing. He does go to duck down and avoid her arms. He's just going to bring up the gun. And he does just think for a minute. Shit, no. As he is going to pull the trigger. Now, as Deku does pull the trigger, a loud sound can be heard. As, well, the blast from the gun does shoot through the air and rip apart the girl's arms. As it does shoot her directly in the chest, and she gets sent flying away. As the blast does smash into a few trees. Now, Deku watches the girl, she just go flying backwards and hit the ground. As Deku does just stand there with the gun in his arms. Now, we actually do have other yautja, or at least the blooded yautjas, who do remain in the monitoring room. As a few of them are crowding around the monitor to see exactly human number, assigning Deku a number, and talking about how he just killed another human. Now, all of them are waiting. They know the typical reaction that humans do have. However, this one, he's a different breed, you could say. He hasn't shown any physical power, but he does show talents. And then there was, well, the last time they observed him. His last interactions with a human, they weren't very good. He met one and then took all of their stuff from their bodies. Most humans would have just let the people rest in peace or bury them, but he did neither. He took what he needed to survive and continued on. Now, you do actually have Deku just stand there stunned, as he's just trying to think. She's dead. Now, Deku does just stand there frozen, as he just going to bring up his gun and going to look down at the power cell, as he's going to pull it out and check to see if it's got anything left. It's empty. Deku going to drop it onto the ground as he does turn back towards the body. Him walking forwards and going to examine exactly how much damage this thing could do to a person. Now, as Deku does walk forwards and bend onto one knee, he does observe the large opening in her chest. It's going from about to the top of her collarbone down to, well, you could call it the third or fourth ab. This thing has got pretty good power. Along with that, the damage it can do to a person. It can cleave somewhat of an oval shape into a person's body. Deku trying to look towards the trees. And there's the actual after effects. At long range, this weapon is useless. However, close to mid-range is where this weapon does excel. So, he does at least know that much. Deku actually going to put another power cell inside of it, as he does go to actually reach his hand into her pockets. Now, the elder, he's actually quite interested, putting this human on a bigger screen, as other humans are quickly starting to fall off of the map, and their screens are getting larger. Now, they actually do watch as Deku, he's looting this person he just killed, and the elder, he is observing. Now, Deku, after looking through her pockets, he does find a few little things. And he actually just hears something break nearby. Deku actually quickly going to throw up his arms with a gun, and turning to his right, he does see somebody else step out. You killed her. She wasn't alone. Now, Deku does look towards this person, as they at least do have some weapons on them. You just killed her, dude. And you were hiding. So I'm guessing you're her partner? I'm not. I just heard the blast and... Fuck. Now, Deku just look at the man, as he does tell him that they need to get out of here. I'm not going anywhere with you. You've read everything we've been given, right? What? Now, Deku does turn his head, as he does try to curse in yautja. Now, Deku does turn and go to run, as he does quickly start to hear things start to burst through the leaves and the trees. Now, As Deku did take off running, you do actually have the man, he does start to scream. And Deku doesn't just look back. He just continues to run. As we actually do have a yautja who is actually above the trees and actually observing what is going on. That human was very intelligent. He knew that the sound of his attack, it would draw people or even the creatures nearby. He was caught up in the fact that he did murder, so it does show some form of remorse. However, he didn't break down like normal people. And then there's also the fact that the other human, he was naive. The moment Deku turned and ran, he just stood there shocked. And he got eaten, or at least taken by the xenomorph. Now, we actually have Deku who does go to bring up his hands and go to actually throw the strap over, well, his shoulder. As he is going to turn the gun and go to actually reach for the arrow that's on his left. As he does so, he does do one thing. Deku goes to grab the bow that's on the right side of his bag, and he does get ready. As Deku does actually go to spin around and see if something followed him. Now, Deku is just standing there with the bow, and he is thinking, okay, let's see, there's nothing there. Deku actually going to start walking a bit backwards more, as he just look behind him and look down towards the ground, as he's trying to make sure there's no more traps he can run into. Now, this is quite interesting. We do actually have where the yautja, they do continue to observe the xenomorph, as they start to actually move the direction that Deku is in. Now, we actually do have Deku, who he is just waiting. Now, he's just trying to think, as he does start to hear cracking and something in the brush, as he does see the large xenomorph come running up. Now, the moment Deku does see it, he does just do one thing. He does aim the bow at its face and go to fire off an arrow. The xenomorph being stabbed by the arrow as Deku does watch it go in. The moment that it actually did break through the skin, he did notice that that green blood, it was being shot out and melting the arrow. The moment Deku did see it, he's just going to do one thing. Deku, he does just go to reach down for his belt and grab a grenade. The moment Deku does go to grab it off his belt, he does go to pull the pin and go to toss it right towards the xenomorph. As Deku does go to go and grab another arrow that he does have. Now, Deku, after he does go to pull back his bow and draw at the xenomorph, after it's screaming profusely, it is going to try and run away from Deku. Deku being able to actually get another shot and hit it right in its leg, as the grenade does roll down in between the xenomorph's feet and go to explode. Now, the grenade, it was a violent explosion, it being able to blow the entire xenomorph apart, and actually knock Deku off his feet and send him flying backwards 10 feet. Now, after Deku got sent flying backwards, you do actually have where he did go to actually try and get back up, and he did look to where the xenomorph was. Now, Deku, he actually started to feel something burning, as he's going to look down at his leg and actually go to see that his clothes are covered in xeno blood. Deku going to actually reach down and grab his knife, him ripping off and cutting through his clothes. Now, Deku tries to cut all the xeno blood off of his, well, clothes, and they're heavily tattered. Now, Deku does at least look at his skin. There are burn marks, but he should be okay. If he just bandages them up and uses this med kit, he'll at least still have something left. He really didn't want to have to use that thing so soon, but it seems like that's the case here. Now, Deku is going to stand up, as he does feel like his skin's on fire. Deku actually going to turn around and run deeper into the forest. Now, we do actually have nightfall, where Deku, he actually is hiding up in a tree, and he does look around the planet, or at least the area he's in, as he's looking down at his bandaged leg. There is some blood coming out, but other than that, he thinks that he'll be fine. Him looking around and seeing that there are some campfires, along with even the forest fire that did start. Deku, he thinks that he ran far enough and away in this direction to get out of range of it. However, there's just a problem now. If those creatures, from what he does understand, if they have acidic blood in their skin or whatever they are, is a natural black color, that means that they're nocturnal hunters, or at least they prefer to hunt at night. Along with the fact that those sounds they did make and that tail that thing did have, he got lucky. It's very bad. If that thing went after him, he probably would have died. He did still have that gun though, so maybe that wouldn't have been the case. Damn it. I'm over contemplating things. Now, Deku, that's what he is thinking, as he'll just try to lean backwards and get some sleep. As Deku actually hears something below him, Deku actually going to lean his head over to look down, as he just actually sees something move. Now, Deku, he immediately goes to grab the tree trunk he's on and going to swing his body underneath it. As Deku, he does get ready. Now, Deku does start to move and try to get an eye on whatever's after him. Now, we actually do have the yautja, who is actually currently spying on Deku. As Deku did actually start to move and actually start to climb back down, she did start to observe him, as you do actually have where she's cloaked. Now, we do actually have where Deku does leap across and grab onto another tree branch, as he does start to swing through and use sturdy branches to try and move. Now, the yautja is paying attention to Deku. You do actually where Deku, he does go to turn his head and see something somewhat off to him. This planet has 3 moons, and at night it can be well lit up, but there's something off right there. Whenever he does look towards the tree line, and then go to look a bit to the right, there's something casting a shadow right there. Now, Deku, he does try to think about that. He's just going to lean on a branch. Now, the moment Deku does stop the yautja, it actually does stare at Deku. And it's quite confused. It does actually go to try and grab a knife. Now, Deku himself does actually go to grab one of his arrows. And he's just trying to think. That's one of his hunters, isn't it? Deku actually going to turn his body. He's just going to throw out his arrow. The yautja actually going to counter Deku with a knife. Now, as the yautja and Deku's, weapons do meet in the air, Deku's knife immediately gets cut through. Or his arrow does get cut through as the yautja knife does go swinging towards Midoriya. And it does actually stab into the tree just to Midoriya's right, or to his left. And Deku does look at the knife as he's going to look back down or back towards the yautja. As Deku does scream at it, exactly why is it hunting him in its native language? And you actually have the yautja who was rushing towards Deku. Now, the moment that Deku did say that in yautja, it was taken by surprise, as it did actually smash into Deku, and the two did go falling out of the tree. Now, as it actually happened, Deku, he did watch as this yautja and him, they both went to reach for weapons. Deku stabbing his right into the tree, as he did actually feel his knife start to cut into it, and his descent started to slow. The yautja actually smashing down to the ground, as it was going to get back up, and running backwards to get into a bit of a more combat stance. And you actually have Deku, after he does go to swing down, or at least leap down a bit, he does get ready. Now, Deku does try to interrogate the yautja. Why is it after them? Why is it hunting humans? Why is it doing these things? And the yautja does just stare on with a lot of surprise. Deku, he's intelligent. He's actually speaking yautja well. This being when the yautja does actually try to talk to Deku. Now, everybody they do watch, as the yautja does inform Deku that he's being hunted because he's been deemed worthy by their people. Your people? Yes. Your people are insane. Now, the yautja does quickly go to defend her traditions, talking about how the yautja have been doing this for millennia, and that her father is the leader of their current clan. Deku just looking at her, as he does ask her exactly what does that have to do with him. Now, the yautja does actually hear someone on columns, as her grandfather is informing her that she may tell him exactly why he is here. However, no more than that. Afterwards, they must fight. Now, the yautja does inform Deku. From their data, Deku's, father, he has defeated the yautja in the past, and because of that his bloodline is deemed worthy and valuable for yautja hunts. Now, Deku does stare at the yautja. His father? So this has to do with my dad. The yautja is just staring at Deku, as Deku does rush forwards with his knife, and the yautja does as well. Now, with that being said, Deku and the yautja are both fighting, and it's actually quite interesting. The yautja who are spectating this event, they do watch it happen. Deku and her, these two are both skilled warriors. Deku, he's proved that he's a blooded enemy, and that he will not hesitate to kill. So, it's a skilled hunter versus the unblooded. Now, Deku and the yautja are both fighting, and it's actually very interesting. These two are both clashing blades as they're actually trying to punch and, attack each other with the other hand. And this is actually where Deku, he does go to defend himself with his blade, as he's actually going to sweep it down to the left, and then going to bring up his hand to actually smash his palm flat into the yautja's throat. Deku knocking off her mask as she just go grabbing upwards towards it, or upwards towards her throat, and Deku does just do one thing. He does rush in and go for a high knee. Deku actually kicking her right in the chest and sending her flying backwards towards a tree, as Deku does reach down for the mask and go to grab it. Now, the moment Deku does actually put it on his face, he does notice a few things. He can see a whole lot better. Along with that, his breathing, it feels different. Now, Deku does just stare at the yautja, and go to get back in a better stance, as everyone there actually remarking on that thing. Now, Deku, he does start to hear voices, as he realizes something. This mask has a communicator inside of it. Now, Deku just rushes forward towards the yautja, as the two, they do continue their knife fight. And Deku, he's trying to ask questions while he's fighting. Now, Deku, he's doing a bit too much. He's trying to multitask the fight, paying attention to his movements, and talk to an unknown enemy. This being where the female yautja, she actually is starting to gain ground on Midoriya. Her actually being able to slash away at one of his arms at Deku, as Deku, he is actually going to throw himself backwards and out of range of the knife that almost went to his throat. As Deku is going to throw up his knife and throw it right at the yautja. Her immediately going to grab his blade out of the air as it is actually cut into her arm. Her actually going to spin her body around and throw it right back at Deku. Now, the moment Deku did see it, he does do one thing. He does go to grab his bow and arrow, as he does go to swing the blade out of the air. Now, as Deku did do that, the blade did go smashing into the tree. And Deku, he did go to grab his body, or turn his body to go and grab it. The yautja quickly rushing Deku as he does try to pull it. The blade not coming out. Deku just doing one thing, he just rushes forwards with his bow. And he does go to attack the yautja by smashing her right in the leg, as she's going to throw out her fist and punch Deku right across the face. Now, these two do continue their battle. Deku actually breaking his bow across her arm as the two do continue to fight. And there's even actually where Deku and her, they're both actually trying to fight each other with strength. Now, the yautja, she actually is holding onto Deku's hands. And there's actually where Deku, he does notice something. She's stronger than him. He can tell. And that's a problem here. He thinks his grip strength is better because of his training. However, she overall in physical prowess was higher. So, Deku just has an idea. He could try to get away from her. He has her mask. And right now this is the best time to this being where Deku does hear something. As both him and the yautja do actually turn to the right. As you do see 3 xenomorphs, who are stalking their prey. Now, Deku and the yautja, they do both immediately go to let go of each other. And Deku does go grabbing, or at least bring up his arms. As he does go to look down at, well, his belt. He has 2 grenades left. And he does turn towards the yautja, who she has to go to pull a weapon. Now, Deku does look right at her, asking if they can have a truce. And she just look back at Deku. Her saying, for 5 minutes. Or let's just say, yes. Now, Deku, yeah. His gun, it's currently up in the tree. Deku didn't want it to fall, so that weapon right now would be his best option. And the yautja, he's well aware that she knows that as well. Now, Deku immediately does go to pull the pins on his grenades, as he go rushing forwards and go to throw them outwards towards the ground. The xenomorphs actually starting to approach forwards as the explosions do go off. On the yautja, she does just go to do one thing. She does go to run at the tree and go to actually grab the knife out of it. As she just go leaping upwards and starting to try and scale the tree with a knife. And you actually do have Deku, who he does just stand there with the mask. And he's starting to move backwards and start to try and weave through the trees as he does look for an opening. Now, you do have the xenomorphs, who they are starting to make their way closer to Deku and approach, trying to get around the wall of flames, as one of them was severely injured. Now, Deku, yeah. He's just waiting now. If he can get this just right, then maybe he can get out of this alive. As Deku does hear something. Him looking up to the yautja, as it's just telling him to catch, or to not mess up. Now, Deku, he does just look up as the gun does come falling downwards. Deku actually going to grab something as he's going to throw himself up into the air. And he does going to actually reach his hand out to grab the gun. The moment Deku does, he's going to aim downwards, as the xenomorph is going to swing his tail upwards towards Deku. Deku immediately going to aim downwards and blast the gun. Now, Deku does cut into one xenomorph, as another one, or the xenomorph's tail does go flying right past Deku, cutting into his cheek, and actually scaling past the rest of his head by his ear. Now, Deku, yeah, he immediately does go rolling and tumbling into the ground, as he's going to get back up and go to reach for his belt. As the other xenomorph does start to charge Deku, and go in for the attack. Now, Deku, he's immediately grabbed by the xenomorph as he's going to actually throw him up into the air and smash him against a tree. Deku actually going to try and continue to reload, as this thing does actually bring up its tail to try and stab Deku in the face. Deku, he immediately does just do one thing. He does bring the gun up and go to jam it right in the xenomorph's teeth, as he just dodge away the tail with his head. Now, Deku does do one thing, as he does try and push against the xenomorph, and continue to think, fuck, 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 fuck. Now, we actually have the female yautja, who does come running up and smashes the xenomorph across the back of the head with a flaming piece of wood. The xenomorph actually reeling back in pain as it does let go of Deku. The moment it does actually go to try and turn and run with Deku though, or try and turn and run, it does try and swing its tail towards Deku, as it does hit the female predator and send her flying backwards. Deku immediately being able to properly reload by turning the piece and jamming it right into the magazine. Deku bringing up the gun and firing right into the back of the xenomorph. Now, as it does happen, the xenomorph, it's killed. And you do actually have our Deku, he does actually slump backwards against the tree, and go to bring up his, hand to inspect his back. It hurts a lot, and then there's the blood running down the side of his face. Shit. This fucking mask. Now, Deku just realized a few things. This thing is now useless, him popping it off and dropping it onto the ground. As he does look at his face. That would have been a lot more damage if it wasn't for that piece of metal. So at least that's good. Deku walking over and looking at the unconscious yautja. And then there's the fact that her. Shit. What to do with her? Her head hit the tree. Okay. This is easy. Now, we actually do have back with the yautja, who they're very, very concerned. This is bad. From what they got information off of the mask, Deku took out all 3 xenomorphs. Yes, it was a team effort, but this was not a proper kill. It does not count. And the yautja elder, he's very disappointed in his youngest daughter. After the mask was destroyed, they can only assume Deku killed the other 2, since that's all they were really able to get off of the mask data, or off of the comms data that Deku does have in his tracker. Now, we actually do have where Deku, he does go to grab the female yautja. And he does just do one thing. He does pick her up and start to move out. Sunrise will be in about what? This planet's weird. It should be probably 30 minutes, maybe. The day and night cycle on this planet's strange. Now, Deku, he's starting to notice a few things. With the way things are on this planet, you might have to start sleeping during the day and move at night just to stay safe. Now, Deku and the yautja, they do get up high, as Deku does tie her up with some rope. And yeah, you do actually have a bit of time later where she does eventually wake up. By this time the sun is already up, and Deku and her are both sitting in front of each other on the floor of the forest. Deku holding up the gun, or at least let's just say his bow and arrow, with an arrow drawn in it. Asking her in yautja exactly who is she. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.